Ahoy there, chummers, and welcome to the first ever Battletech video on this channel. Probably going to have to think of a new intro for these type of videos, but it's neither here nor there at the moment, and I will just stick with the tried and true classic. Now, I was debating very heavily where to start with Battletech, what to do for the first video, because there's so much cool stuff associated with Battletech, from the mechs, the vehicles, the lore, and everything in between, that it's really, really hard to know where to begin. So I thought I would actually begin with a bit of a wholesome story from when I first started playing Battletech all the way back in middle school. Now, I started in 6th grade with Battletech. A friend got me into it, of course. He invited me over to my house and said, "Hey, let's play a game of Battletech." And I'm like, "What's that?" It's like, "Oh, you've got these giant stompy robots." "Oh, well, that's freaking cool as hell. Let's play that." And it kind of snowballed from there. Now, my school had a Battletech club that met every Monday after school, and that was probably my favorite time of the week was Monday, because it meant I got to hang out after school and play Battletech for a couple of hours. Most people hated Mondays. I absolutely loved them. Now, in this club, they tried to do different narrative scenarios and campaigns throughout the year, and every 9-week period, every grading period, actually wrapped up with a narrative battle, a massive narrative battle, and the end of the year wrapped up with this giant battle that usually happened on a weekend, and involved everybody in the club, and it was a full day of just hanging out and playing Battletech, and it was awesome. So 8th grade. Actually, before I get into this, the other thing that I should mention is the teachers that ran the club. They gave every student the opportunity to choose their own battle mech for the entire for the year. You didn't have to use the mech through the entire year, but this was generally understood to be the mech that you would use during like the big narrative battles and that sort of thing. And they would paint them up in whatever camo scheme you wanted, and you got a free little mech that you could run around the battlefield and play games with, and it was really cool. Now, 8th grade, I had been really neck deep into Battletech lore for probably the better part of almost 3 years by this point, and I had a bunch of the old technical readouts that I just poured through. I mean, absolutely, a couple of them fell apart because I read them so much. I had an almost encyclopedic knowledge of the game, of the mechs that were associated with the game, and I absolutely loved it. I still do, but my knowledge is not as encyclopedic as it once was. So when the time came to choose my mech for my 8th grade year, I had actually been reading up on the Star League era mechs, and I thought that one in particular was pretty cool, and that was the Flashman. I thought it looked awesome. It was a giant walking egg. It had these great big arm cannons and a crap load of lasers that it couldn't really hope to fire without overheating. But I thought it looked cool, and I loved heavy mechs and I loved assault mechs, so I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick a Flashman. Well, the prevailing attitude of the Flashman at the club was very negative for some reason, because it's actually a fairly solid mech. But the people in the club, they all made fun of me for choosing a crappy Star League mech, because they had chosen all these clan invasion era mechs. Actually, it was 4th Succession War era. We hadn't gotten to the clan invasion back in then. But so they were choosing all these cool looking mechs. The Atlas was a big choice. Warhammer was another one. Marauder, that sort of thing. And here I was the odd man out with my giant walking egg, the Flashman. And I wanted them to paint it in a winter camo scheme, because I thought the winter camo scheme was pretty cool. So yeah, I had a cool little Flashman running around, and I was absolutely horrible with it. I lost every battle I played. I was not a great tactician, but I didn't give a damn. I still got made quite heavily at the club for choosing the Flashman. But I didn't care. I absolutely loved playing the game. I loved playing the Flashman. And I stuck with it throughout the year. They even gave me the opportunity to change my mech if I wanted to, and I said, no, I'm going to stick with this mech. I like the Flashman. This is what I'm going to go with. So end of the year comes around, and they announce the big end of the year narrative battle. Now, the son of one of the teachers was in the same grade as me, in the same class, and was going to be graduating along with me that year. So they decided to do something really big and grand for his last year in the club. And that was going to be a special narrative battle combining the club's Epic 40K collection, back then it was known as Space Marine, with Battletech in this big narrative mashup battle. Now, they stressed that this battle was non-canon. It had nothing to do with the Battletech universe. It was just going to be a fun little thing that we were going to do as the last battle of the year. Now, the scenario, the gist of it was that we were part of an expeditionary force, a mercenary expeditionary force, exploring in a previously undiscovered, uncharted world. And we landed on this planet and just happened to discover that it was inhabited by the Eldar, who were very pissed off at us invading their homeworld and decided to make their displeasure known by brute force of arms. So the scenario itself was we started on one edge of the table and had to fight our way to the other edge of the table into the drop zone, into the landing zone, so we could be extracted by our dropship. Not only that, but the dropship, once we got there, would take a couple of turns to enter. I believe it was 5 turns. That we had to stay in the landing zone, and anybody who survived at the end would, I forget what the prize was. there was some sort of prize associated with getting all the way to the end of the board and surviving. So it was actually a pretty fun battle. Though the alien rules were fairly well balanced. The vehicles, they had a couple of walkers in there. Couple of the smaller Titans for the Eldar, I believe, is what they had mixed in there as well. So not sure what those were called, but it was very fun, and it was a really hard fight. We ended up losing probably about half our number by the time we got over to the end of the board, and of course, me with my little Flashman, people were running out of ammo. I was, because almost everybody had chosen mechs that were very heavily reliant on ammo, because those were the cool mechs. So me and my Flashman with its laser weapons, I'm just sitting there popping off shots as I'm running away, trying to get to the other side of the board. And we get to the other side of the board, and essentially what the layout was, if I'm remembering this correctly, this is a long time ago. I'm not going to say exactly how long, but the layout of the side was essentially there was a choke point with like a mountain on one side and a lake on the other side, and like kind of a narrow strip of land where the Eldar could come in. And this was a massive horde of Eldar. I mean, like literally almost one half of the board was just about filled with Eldar by this point. So it was something that was meant to be a very hard fight. It was something that was meant to be barely survivable. And it ended up being that. We lost, like I said, half our number just getting to the landing zone. So we get to the landing zone. We're being swarmed by the Eldar. Everybody's taken some damage. A lot of people are crippled. And at this point, desperation is starting to set in. We get the transmission from the dropship that they are inbound, and we just need to hold out for 5 minutes before the extraction team arrives to pick us up. And then once the dropship gets there, of course, we can, under cover of its guns, we can board the dropship and I'll go home. So I'm starting to realize that we are probably not going to make it by this point, because several tactical decisions had been made that, let's just say, were not in our favor by some folks. Incompetence abounds. You know how it is in a massive battle. The chain of command does not hold up very well when it makes contact with the enemy, and things were breaking down, and sheer panic was starting to set in. So I noticed the lake, and I asked how deep it was. And he said it was would have been about waist deep, essentially. So I was like, huh, okay. I had a couple of heat sinks in my legs. At this point, wasn't able to fire everything all at once without overheating. Of course, I was running across the board as well, so that affected my heat as well. So I had not really done a whole lot other than snap off a couple of shots with a large laser or two. Mostly used my shorter range lasers to kind of pick off anything that came too close. So what I decided to do is I walked my mech to the edge of the landing zone, and I just park it right in that lake. Because I had calculated that if I sat in that lake, I would be able to fire pretty much everything every turn and not have to worry about heat. And that is exactly what I did. I parked myself in that lake and I proceeded to rain absolute hell down on the Eldar. My dice rolls by this point, I don't know what the hell was going on, but Lady Luck was definitely smiling on me at this point because I was snapping off impossible shots. I snapped off a shot at a Titan, needed a 12 to hit, rolled a 12, critical, bam, Titan dead. Infantry coming up, I was just mowing them down with my smaller guns, and anything that came too close, I either vaporized it, or in a couple of cases, I actually charged and knocked that shit over. And it got to the point where I was laying down so much fire that the Eldar started focusing more and more on me. And at this point, it essentially became a duel between me and the Horde, to the point where they actually brought out one of the larger Titans to take me down. I see this larger Titan just kind of striding through the battlefield. You just imagine the waves of Eldar infantry and vehicles just kind of parting before this massive beast that's bigger than my machine as it's walking up into the water to face me down. And we ended up dueling for probably a good 2-3 turns before a lucky shot from the Eldar Titan took out one of my legs. And that was it. I ended up taking the Titan down with me on my last shot. I ended up hitting an engine critical on it and completely destroying it. But it ended up killing me as well. And my last vision, my Mechwarrior's last vision, was of the dropship lifting off from the landing zone, carrying the survivors of the ill-fated expedition. As my Mechwarrior saw this as his mech essentially went nuclear and stack-poled and destroyed itself in a rain of fire and glory, which was a really cool ending, I thought, to my Mechwarrior's career. Now, the next Monday at school, we had kind of a little awards ceremony for the year. And it was standard awards like, best pilot, best sportsman, and different awards that you would give out to a club of gamers after a year of heavy gaming. And one award was an honorable mention for my Mechwarrior, and what they had done is they had actually created, I forget what it's called, but they actually created the story behind the scenario with the Eldar was that we were actually bankrolled by the Federated Suns, and we're exploring planets beyond the periphery for them, and we found this uncharted planet, and yada yada yada, mayhem ensued, and so on and so forth. But they actually took the time to kind of craft I think it was the Star of Davian or something like that. They crafted essentially a Medal of Honor for my Mechwarrior and awarded it to him posthumously. And I actually got applause. I actually got applause when they presented it to me from the club, because it was really cool that after almost a year of being made fun of and picked on for choosing quote unquote the stupidest mech that I could possibly choose, that mech ended up saving so many virtual lives. And I ended up getting a standing ovation from the very same people that derided me for my mech of choice, which I thought was just kind of the perfect end to the year and the perfect end of middle school. And of course, my Battletech career didn't end there at all. I still play Battletech. I got back into it a couple of years ago. after a very long break. Was very excited to discover that it really hadn't changed very much at all, and my encyclopedic knowledge was still there, and I was able to play the game just as I did back in middle school when I was a kid, and I'm also able to experience new aspects of Battletech with Alpha Strike and other new stuff that's coming out as well. So anyway, that is probably the most vivid story that I have from gaming in general, was that little fight, that little scenario between us and the Eldar, something that never would happen in universe ever in a million years, and was just a fun little scenario to give the kids a cool activity to do on a Saturday morning. It was really awesome. Were all the details correct? Absolutely not. This was in the 90s, and I'm sure I'm completely misremembering things. I've probably built it up in my head to be way grander than it actually was, but you know what? It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, gaming is about the memories. They don't have to be 100% accurate. What really matters is the feeling that you get when you look back on those pivotal moments of your gaming career and re-experience the joy that you felt at that point in time. Now, as for Battletech content on this channel, it is going to be coming, and it is going to be coming, I don't want to say fast and furious, but it is going to be coming probably about on the same level as the Shadowrun content. Shadowrun's not going away. Shadowrun is definitely sticking around, because that is my other game that I have played since I was a kid. That is my other RPG of choice, and there is also so much lore yet to do with Shadowrun. So many paracritters to cover, so many different pivotal events, and it's hard to know what to do next. But content for both games is coming. I think with Battletech, I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to talk about mechs that I think are cool as hell. Because really, at the end of the day, that's what this channel is about. It's me talking about stuff that I think is cool as hell and sharing it with other people who think it is also cool as hell. So if you liked what you heard, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so that you will always know whenever I upload a brand new video, and I will see you all next time. And that's the chip truth, chummers. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more Shadowrun content. Hit that notification bell so you will always know when I upload a brand new Shadowrun video, and until next time, remember to shoot straight and never, ever deal with a dragon.